Good evening and welcome to the January 12th, 2021 Curriculum Subcommittee meeting of the Brockton Public Schools, or the Brockton School Committee. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 9. The public can access this meeting via this link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. All right, before we review the agenda and move forward, I'll call the roll to establish a quorum. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. Vice Chair D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. We have a quorum. So this evening on our agenda is a discussion on the Student Opportunity Act, Cohort Assignments, other business, and the final item, the subcommittee. This subcommittee will go into executive session, and I'll detail that when we get to that item. So Superintendent Thomas, if you want to, you take an item one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. So just as we presented the Student Opportunity Act at the last meeting, and obviously you needed time to go over that. And we have members of the team today here with us tonight to answer any questions. We have to submit the Student Opportunity Act plan by the 15th of January, obviously, which is Friday, and we will we'll submit that through the portal through the Department of Education. But it's been made clear by Commissioner Riley several times that we will have a chance to pretty much drastically change the plan as we see the money, hopefully this spring. So we would would have more stakeholder meetings with our parents, with our staff, with you, so we can actually tweak the plan as we move into the next school year. So everything that's pretty much been in this plan now is the pre-COVID. There are some things in there from the district review. More needs to go in there around the district review. So again, this is getting the plan in, submitting it, and then wait to see what we get for the money when the governor and the House come through with their budget. And then we will obviously tweak that plan as we move into the spring and early summer. So, I could go over some highlights if you want me to, or.
Yeah, maybe just give us a view from 10,000 feet, and then we can call for a, if we can have any questions and then call for a vote.
Sure. Just bring it up on my computer. I had it, then I lost it.
All right. Well, does anybody have anything they remember from anything from their review of the SOA that they wanted to ask specifically?
1 minute, Mr. D'Agostino.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to burn a little time for you. It's,
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I just
No.
had it up here and I'm like, what the hell happened to it? All right, now I'm annoyed.
I have mine up. Do you want me to forward this?
Yeah, forward it back to me. I was just gonna look up an email to you that when I sent it.
Okay.
I'm not working off my regular laptop, so.
Right. Okay, SOA plan and forward.
I have it.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
So, I don't know if am I allowed to share my screen?
Give it a whirl.
I'll try.
There
You
you
see
go.
it?
Yep, it's yes.
Okay. That all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I mean, can you blow it up a little bit? It's a little.
Now you're really challenging me.
I know. Now I'm really pushing the plus sign at the top.
Yeah, I don't have this one. It's funny. I don't have that one.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, this is June. You want to share yours?
I can share mine. I actually have the PowerPoint up in front of me. Do you want me to put that up?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, Mike.
No, that's all right. It's just good thing I wasn't being evaluated after this.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Mike, I'll just flip through these slides. So we're going to start with commitment 1.
Yes, please.
Do you want to speak to them or do you want me to jump in?
No, I'm here. So commitment 1 is the focus on student subgroups, our English language learners, our students who receive special education services, and then our students who are not meeting grade level expectations. Obviously, you know how many English language learners we have in the school district, which makes the Brockton Public Schools proud that we have students that represent 47 different countries and speak several different languages, and it's a staple of the Brockton Public Schools. And again, but we need to really focus on supporting our English language learners and obviously make sure that they have access, obviously, to a high quality education, but also access to higher level courses and all other services that we have in the Brockton Public Schools. And then another part of commitment number 1 is students who receive special education services. Nearly 17% of the district student population is classified as students with disabilities. We've worked hard throughout the pandemic to ensure they have received services through our IEPs, regardless of the learning model we're using. But again, we have to continue to strengthen our programs for students with disabilities, look at our staffing levels with students with disabilities, and make sure our students with disabilities have access to everything all students have. They should have access to everything, extracurricular activities, and we have to make sure that they're supported in of all their goals. Students not meeting grade level expectations, obviously these are, we need to look at test scores, but only that, we need to look at student work to make sure that our students are meeting their grade level expectations, and then put supports and wraparound services in place for them to make sure that they are meeting grade level expectation, and then pushing our students, again, into higher level courses And so again, when they graduate, they have access to do whatever they wish to do. June, would you, next one?
I just
Okay.
flipped to commitment 2. Can
So,
you see it?
yep, I got it.
Yep.
Using evidence-based programs to close gaps. So we need to use our successful planning models for evidence-based development. We have to make sure we select evidence-based programs to provide resources to our students that support student learning. And we have to make sure we do that for our teachers. I mean, we have to provide our teachers with top-level programs that are evidence-based and resources so teachers can do their job effectively. And again, as we have moved through budget cuts over the years, the resources that teachers have had access to has gone down. But we've spent a lot of work, June and her team has spent a lot of work on beefing up our curriculum, looking for other resources, and we've been able to do that, again, with money that you've put aside for that and with grants that we've had, but we really do need to provide our teachers with high quality resources, help them do their jobs effectively. Again, go ahead, I'm good. Deepen the use of standards aligned high quality curriculum, and we'll be doing that as we see more money come in. We need to focus on that. Look at our curriculum. And again, it's all about providing our teachers with what they need, the tools that they need, and what the students need. Tying in professional development that supports the work that teachers are doing in the classroom, high-level professional development for them. And obviously that's important, and it obviously is in line with any curriculum resources that we are providing. So commitment 3 is monitoring successful outcomes with the metrics and targets. We need to continue to look at student growth through MCAS, growth percentile, ELA, mathematics, student achievement through MCAS, through their scaled scores in ELA, math, and science. We have to look at our 4-year graduation cohort rate and make sure that students are following the path for graduation to be successful. And we need to make sure we provide programs to make sure our students can graduate with their cohort in 4 years. And we have to always monitor our annual dropout rate to make it, obviously our goal is to have it at 0. And that goes in line with offering wraparound services, different pathways for students who are struggling. And we can obviously got to continue to look at that. English language proficiency, we need to make sure that our students are making progress towards English language proficiency. And again, students meeting their annual targets to obtain proficiency. And based on our WIDA access, again, it's about supporting our English language learners and giving the teachers the support and professional development they need and the tools that they need to make our students successful. We are always looking at chronic absenteeism. We have to look at our percentage of students that are missing 10% of their days, and we've been focused on that. The principals with the staffs at their schools have done a great job to work with creative ways to keep students engaged and work with our families to make sure our students are not absent and getting to school. And especially now during the pandemic, the work the teachers are doing around that with the administration to keep students engaged is amazing. And we're going to continue to look at that as we move through the, as the plan for the Student Opportunity Act. Advanced coursework. We have to look at the percentage of 11th and 12th graders that are taking advanced coursework, advanced placement classes, dual enrollment classes, Chapter 74 approved vocational programs to make sure that students have the access to higher level courses, and that's students at all levels. As you know, we have TAG. We're looking to expand that. The goal someday is to have TAG in every class, in every school, I mean. So our TAG students don't have to leave their their neighborhood school and go to another school. Our goal is to have a tag program in every school, which would be, again, that would be quite a feat for the Brockton Public Schools, and that's our goal. And then the seal of biliteracy, which is percentage of students who obtain the seal of biliteracy each year. That's very important. And also it centers around the work that we're doing at the George School. And students in the arts, the percentage of students who participate in the district's arts programming, which has always been a staple and strength of the Brockton Public Schools. And thanks to the school committee, your effort and what you've always put into the extracurricular activities, especially the area of the arts, as you see by our student performances in the theater, in the band, and also the artwork that they produce. And then commitment 4 is engage in all families. Again, a community-based effort to involve cross-section of stakeholders in our greater community, so we can create a dialogue about our Student Opportunity Act proposals so that the parents and families see exactly what our plan is. And that's obviously a big part of why we started the community center, to have parents really involved in how the Brockton Public Schools is going to move forward. And that's obviously very important that we involve all of our stakeholders. Is that it, June?
So that, yeah,
Did I
that's
miss anything? Did I?
no, you got it all. Those are the 4 commitments, basically
That's our 4
summarized.
commitments. Obviously, if you think quickly about how some of this is going to be tweaked, there's obviously going to be work that has to be around the recovery from COVID as our teachers and our students return to school, not only at some point this year, but going into next year. There's going to have to be funds allocated to helping our students and staff recover from COVID, as far as the time that has been missed, the extra programs that we can put in place, wraparound services we can put in place, credit recovery programs, vacation programs, summer programs to help our students catch up. And again, supporting them as much as we can as we as a community recover from COVID. And it's going to be important to have funds in the through the Student Opportunity Act to make sure that we can support our teachers and our students in helping all of us recover from COVID.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for.
All right, so is there any questions for the superintendent on the Student Opportunity Act plan?
I have a couple of questions.
Mr. Minicello, please.
So thank you for all that information. So when it comes, when you talk about English language learners, there's so many different, students from so many different places. What are some of the, I guess, ideas and techniques and strategies that are going to be put into place in order to support that population in light of the fact that so many of our students are coming from different cultures and different countries and languages? That's one. And then another question is, what are, with regard to some of the students that you were talking about that need to be, I guess, in sort of supplemental type of programming, even through this summer. Is there any thought to doing some wide-scale testing to determine whether or not a significant portion of our population needs to stay back in each grade level because of what's gone on for the past year, basically? Is there any discussion or assessment that's going to be done to determine if in fact these students are prepared to move on to the next grade, or if in fact a significant population of each grade level needs to be held back in these unprecedented times? I know it's not a popular topic, but this is an unprecedented problem, and I fear that going forward, we're going to have a couple of years of students that are not prepared like students in the past to go forward and move on to different grades and different post high school learning. So that's my 2 cents worth, and just wondering if anyone's given any thought to those things.
Yeah, well, Mr. Michello, you make a good point. Number one is we have to look at our English language learners, the programs across the district where they're housed, as you know, because of staffing cuts over the years. A lot of our English language learners have to leave their neighborhood school and attend schools either across the city or halfway across the city. So we got to look at increasing staffing around that so we can actually have programs in each school. So those students are allowed to stay in their neighborhood school and grow in their neighborhood school with obviously their friends and classmates that live in the neighborhood. So we have to look at that because some of our SEI classes are very high. So we really need to look at the staffing for those programs, and also how we get more of them into school so students do not have to leave their home school and go to other schools. We're working with the bilingual department through our new MOU to look at the co-teaching model. So we've been working closely with Kelly Jones, Director of Bilingual, on the co-teaching model. But again, all of this, we need funding for it. That's why it's so important that the state funds the Student Opportunity Act, because that's all about funding, obviously, with staffing and making sure we have programs evenly in every school first. And then when you talk about the assessments, it's assessments that we have to do in the school department, assessments that teachers do every day with their students that will recognize how far students have fallen behind. But the state, Commissioner Riley has mentioned several times that the testing this year is going to be diagnostic and not used to punish schools if they do not do well. So we're hoping that they're going to do away with accountability as far as rating schools and using MCAS this year as a diagnostic tool rather than a tool to say, your school is underperforming and you need to, you're going into turnaround, or they're placing you on a watch list. It's all about diagnostic testing so we can see where students are and then how best to move them forward. And then programs that we'll talk about, vacation schools. When we're allowed to come back, in the tutoring program that the community schools is doing, and how we expand that program, how we do after school programs when students are back in school, so we can support them with areas they're having difficulties with. And then obviously summer school, that has to be more about instead of just making up classes and trying to make up credits, it's more has to be targeted on what our students are really struggling with and support them in the summer. And those programs have to grow as well. But as you said, it all comes down to funding. But if we get the funding, I think we know how to do this to make sure our students and teachers have the support they need so we can move them forward. But the spring and the summer and early next fall are going to be key times that we identify our students' needs, work with parents closely. We did it this year that students requested to keep their children back, and we were able to honor that. And then we were able to put some extra supports in place, but going further, it's going to be even more important to do that. So I don't know if anybody else wants to, Ethan. Or anybody else can jump in.
Just on some of what you said, Superintendent, I hear you loud and clear with regard to the resources for up and coming with the Student Opportunity Act. But when we tried to discuss that and bring those issues to light, the state really didn't want to hear about it at all. it was as if, the funding problem has no basis in, the issues that Brockton faced. They're love to quote that, the school committee, is basing, its decisions, not on, the independent data, but basically on gut, gut decisions, not based in factual data and testing. So the state, I guess, really doesn't want to hear funding is a problem at all. But we obviously know that it certainly had something to do with why we are where we're at. So I guess if in fact things are status quo, because the economy obviously isn't doing too stellar these days, if we anticipate a sort of a lukewarm or mediocre funding for the upcoming year, I guess I don't think the state is really going to take too kindly, to the situation with regard to money. I just don't think that that's something they really think is relevant. So I guess what I'm saying is, what if that's the case, what sort of resources or change in operations or teaching are going to be pursued in order to address that deficiency, as highlighted by the evaluation, and yeah, if in fact a high number of our students aren't prepared, I really do think we need to think about keeping a large number of kids back, because I don't think we're going to do them any favors pushing them forward unprepared. So, because as I guess teachers know, and we've learned that there are key grades where if you don't learn your multiplication or your division, you can forget about your future. If you don't learn those fundamental basics, you're always going to struggle when you get to middle school and high school, because back in elementary, and that I guess that third grade, fourth grade is a very critical time in terms of the basic fundamental skills you need in order to move forward, and succeed later on. So I just think we need to think about that before we just push the kids forward, and without doing that, I guess, process and thought that needs to be had in this situation.
Yeah, so you make a good point. I mean, I put great faith in the teachers who working with these kids every day, and again doing the most live instruction than any other district in the state. And I think, I put a lot of faith in their assessment and evaluation of the students. They can't all be about test scores, but also what, the teachers' work that they're doing with the students. And I think it's got to be all about extra support programs before students are kept back. And Ethan June can jump in, because some of their research that they have done is about retention. In normal times, retention usually doesn't work, and it doesn't prove to be. We've seen several students over the years, and my years at Brockton High School, and we kept back a large amount of ninth graders. Those were the students who a large percentage of them end up dropping out, falling behind, staying back a third time. Then you end up in alternative pathways, and unfortunately, a lot of them dropping out. So retention, again, that's normal times, but I think that it's more about providing extra programs and wraparound services and vacation schools, which the department has been. They do recognize that especially gateway cities are going to need, and this is second to the Student Opportunity Act. There are going to be grants available for recovery from COVID, and I expect there are going to be more grants that are going to be given out by the federal government as we move into late into the early spring and later in the spring. So those are the things we're going to have to really look into, and those extra programs, those support programs, after school programs that, and our teachers really spending extra time with our students in those programs before we look at retention. But again, retention has to be something that the school, the teacher, the parent all sit down, have a serious conversation about, which we do every year in normal times with retention. But I think more, and again, Ethan, I'll let you jump in and stop talking. But I think it's going to be more about how many support programs we can put in place before we work with parents and decide whether a student needs to be retained.
Ethan, if you're, there you go.
It doesn't look like he's muted.
I know, but we can't hear
You're trying
him.
to talk, but you're not muted.
Oh, now you are.
There, no.
So while Ethan.
June, you can jump in before Ethan can. Ethan, you might have to log out and log back in.
So just a couple things come to mind as you were talking, Mr. Minicello. You asked about, the issue or some of what the district review had highlighted as being an issue around bilingual students, and something that we have already begun is piloting an inclusive model over at the Gilmore School, where we're using a co-teaching model. We've been able to provide professional development to not only the teachers at the Gilmore, but teachers outside of the Gilmore on co-teaching, using some national experts to come into the district and work directly with our teachers. So that was happening prior to the district review and after the district review. And we've continued to have those conversations. And part of the SOA, I don't know if you remember, but we were adding, I can't remember the exact number, but we were adding a number of ESL teachers in order to be able to better support that inclusive model. And the superintendent talked about doing the best that we could to keep students in their home schools. And the only way we'd be able to really be able to do that effectively is by having more ESL teachers in all of our elementary and middle and at the high school as well. As far as summer programming, we have begun to have those conversations, but we have to see where we are, and hopefully we're going to be bringing kids back into school, and we'll be able to provide some high quality tiered instruction over the summer. That's something that that we're really good at. The community schools office does a fabulous job providing summer programming, both academic and enrichment. And so that's something we're really going to be able to tap into in the event that we're able to provide summer programming. Even this past summer, in the new world of remote learning, the community schools office was able to really work to provide some high quality tiered instruction over the summer months. And that's when we were really brand new at remote learning. We really are, when we bring kids back to school in person and in this remote environment, we have to continue to provide differentiated instruction. And we're focusing on the power standards. We're focusing on work that's already begun in the district. And over the past couple of months, you've heard a lot from schools, the schools that have developed the sustainable improvement plans, and all of those schools have put into place some really high quality, not only tiered interventions, but we're bringing in high quality resources. So that work is happening. So we expect that all to work toward making a real difference in our schools, regardless of the fact that we're responding to the district review. That was work that was already in progress. So I don't know if Ethan's going to be able to jump in and talk about the research around retention, but I think he is. He's shaking his head yes.
Nope.
We still can't hear him.
Wow. It's the first time it's happened.
Wow.
It is. No, yeah, he's usually, something's going on, something unplugged.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Saba, thank you very much for those comments. Are there any?
Ask Kim. Kim Gibson
is.
fixed the one in my conference room today. Maybe she can help.
Okay, no, I think I figured it out.
There it is.
Switched the microphones. Thank you, Mr. Minicello, for that question. I think it's a great setup. I was actually just looking into this. as the superintendent pointed out, we've never had a pandemic before, you know, but the research prior to the pandemic is very clear. It's exactly what Mike laid out for us. Staying back, retention is not a successful strategy based on research, but there are programs like Mike and Sharon actually ran at Brockton High, the sort of recovery, the acceleration programs, the summer programs, the after school programs. So I think, you know, when you combine what Mike said with what June said, I think you start to see the strategy. Your first point, which, you know, really got my attention, was reminding us how important it is that we base our decisions on data, because, you know, that's what we do, but also that's what the district review said. And so I did want to say that's, you know, great point. We have STAR data for the younger grades up to grade 8. We have unit test data, and then we have term grades, and we've analyzed all those and presented those, and we'll continue to do so. So that will help us make those decisions. And then, as you know, we're recovering from the pandemic, that's when those programs will come into play that our chief academic officer described and the superintendent described. But in terms of retention, I would right now say the research is pretty conclusive, at least not in a pandemic, that it's not a successful strategy, but there are very successful strategies, and there may always, and this is the one thing that, you know, Mike stresses as a superintendent, there always can be exceptions. We have to use our professional judgment. We have to listen to what our teachers say, our building leadership, and also, very importantly, what our parents say. So thank you. I'd been reading about this. It gave me a chance, and I was so disappointed I was muted.
Well, well, that's good to know, I guess. I think the one thing to remember, however, is that we're going to have to, I think, do the wraparound services and all these other interventions on a scale never before imagined. That's number one. And number two, you know, Mrs. Sable was pointing out the different strategies and the co-teaching models, and I've sounded like a broken record, I guess, for years. But when we do find what works, I think we need to have some sort of a uniformity across the district, so that, yeah, there's going to be differences in different schools that deal with different subgroups, but at certain grade levels, when you have the same sort of subgroup of student, I think there needs to be effective implementation of best practices and best methodology and best teaching. That always seems to be, in certain schools, certain things are successful, and other schools are doing things in a totally different way. In our district, it seems to have always, for some crazy reason, unravel in that based on personalities and staff rather than, you know, successful implementation of what the data shows and the method in which to present it and teach it. Personalities and personnel seem to trump the overall methodology that might be a successful tool. So just keep that in mind, I guess, that you know, what is really working in one place might need to be, even though some people might think it's stepping on toes, might need to be integrated because it's working. So there you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Minicello. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, Mr. Sullivan, please.
Just one question, Ethan. Do you remember how many ESL teachers we need? We were talking about increasing that.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know that number. I can get it for you though.
Mike, we had it on the board. Do you remember what it was? I think it
No, we had it, Mr. What I can do is, what we can do is send you when we voted through the 93 positions back last March, with that first, knowing when we were getting the extra $10 million, well, actually it's $20 million, but 10 million of that was your discretion. And as you know, on March 3rd, we approved 93 positions, several of those being, and we can talk about this a little bit more, adjustment counselors, but there were ESL positions there that would have really helped support these programs. But we can send that in Friday's packet. We obviously kept all that information on what was voted for, and we'll send that Friday, and we'll also talk to the bilingual director, Kelly Jones, to get up-to-date numbers too, because obviously things have changed in the year. And then with more work that has to happen with our students, obviously being out of school, we need to look at more support for those students. So, but we'll get you last year's number so you know what we voted on back last March.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. We'll put that in Friday's packet.
All right.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? And if there's nobody else, I think we do need a vote on the Student Opportunity Act plan. Mike, is that correct? We need a vote this evening?
Yep, to approve me to submit it as written to the Department of Education. Yep, that's it.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the Student Opportunity Act as presented tonight and as written to the Department of Education.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Sullivan, properly seconded by Mrs. Sullivan. I will call the roll. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Vice Chair D'Agostino, yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez. Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is cohort assignments.
Thank you. So as you know, we have an orange and green cohort for our return in the hybrid model. We actually have split those, and we did this long ago, into families to make sure families stayed the same and stayed with the same cohort, obviously, and attended school the same days when we come back. We actually have broken those obviously into two cohorts with a hybrid model. When we return in a hybrid, with me, students coming to school 2 days a week and then being home 3 days a week for remote learning. We also, for planning purposes, are developing 4 cohorts, 2 in orange and 2 in green. So we can look at the possibility, especially not only at the high school, but district-wide, of returning students in smaller groups, especially during the first part of bringing students back. So we're able to transition with a smaller amount of kids in the building coming to and from school. So we can, basically get students used to being back in school, support them more. And obviously, it'd be easier to learn routines with smaller groups, passing through hallways, lunches, those kind of things. So to plan for that, we do have 2 cohorts. We also have 4 cohorts, which obviously would take the students from 50% to 25%. And, with our schools being large and students not being in school for such a long period of time, when we do come back to school, it just would be just kind of a smaller transition back to support our students and the teachers and staff. So I just wanted to let you know that as far as what the cohorts are, we do have to get cohort assignments out to, I know we have a meeting next Tuesday night, and we have a presentation from Dr. Herman to look at the metrics again, and talk about the return dates, and obviously we'll look at that. And then pretty shortly after that Tuesday next week, by the end of that week or the beginning of the following week, we really need to get the cohort assignments off the families.
Okay. And you think you made a good point that these are targets. I know, people are watching the numbers and I mean, I just pulled it up and it wasn't good. And saying, how can they be talking about going back to school? Again, DESE wants us to have targets. And so we are setting targets, but we will continue to review the metrics. As we just did, we moved the target because the metrics justified it and warranted it. And we'll continue to review those metrics and make the appropriate adjustments as warranted by the data. Anyone want to comment? Mayor Sullivan?
Yes, if I could, just to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Mr. Vice Chairman, I just wanted to give everybody the most recent data. So 351 deaths in the city of Brockton. We're up 1 from yesterday. 351 loss of life because of COVID. We're almost at 10,000 total cases. We're at 9,649 total cases since the state started to calculate. We're at 2,430 residents currently active positive cases. Hospital, we have 94 patients in the hospital, 12 are in the ICU today, and that's both Good Sam and Signature Brockton. We're up 72 cases since yesterday, and right now, in terms of the red classification, we're at 81.9 average daily case count per 100,000. If you're 10 or higher, you're in red. We're also at 12.1% positive test rate. If you're over 4%, you're in red. So what I'm fearful of, and I'll be very honest, I was on a call with the hospitals yesterday, Neighborhood Health Center, as well as Dr. Herman. We haven't seen the uptick yet because of Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. So they expect drastic increases. We hope not, but that's what they expect right now, the medical people. So next week when Dr. Herman comes before us, he'll have the most recent data, but that's as of today. I just wanted to share that to all the members on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes. Mr. Thomas, just one quick question. Do you have a total number of students in BPS for this
Total
year?
number at the last enrollment was right around 15,800, but I will give you one. I'll give you the exact number in 1 second. I can pull the enrollment up. Even on this computer, I'm not used to.
I can wait till Friday, Mike.
No, have it. I think it was, yeah, we'll definitely have it in the
Mike,
Friday
I do have
packet, but I can give it to you now. Go ahead, Ethan, you got it quicker than me?
yeah, it's 15,384. That's as of October 1. So that's our official, what we report to the state.
And then what was the enrollment that was given to us on, I have it right here so we get it every month updated. So that's the October 1st number. And our number for that was given to us actually was on January 4th. Right now we are at 15,501. That is down from the 16,217 that we had last year. So the current enrollment is 15,501. A lot of the drastic drop in which is, we have seen this throughout. So it's 716 students. And that's because a lot of students have decided to either not start school if they were kindergarten. A lot of parents decide to keep their kids home, even in remote. And we also have lost students to private schools as well. So that's the current enrollment, 15,501.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, do you think the loss to the privates, those were schools that were going full in person?
Yeah, some of those were the schools going full in person, correct, who have now gone hybrid.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, I don't see anyone else. So is there any other business to come before curriculum? Okay. All right. So if there's nothing else to come before curriculum, then the school committee is going to go into executive session. And so basically, The school
You need a
committee will now enter,
Need
what's that?
a motion to adjourn this meeting?
No, I gotta read the executive session thing and then we'll take a vote to go into executive session.
Okay.
So the school committee will enter executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of conducting strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as conducting this deliberation in an open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session after the executive session. So once we go into executive session and we end the executive session, the meeting will be over. We won't come back to an open session meeting. Right, so we'll do a roll call to go into executive session. Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Chair D'Agostino says yes. Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
We are in executive session.